this data set is a collection of many people in the census, United States Census. And of course, there's no name for each person, but there's some information or some kind of features or whatever fields of each person, like an age, 40 years old, the sector he or she works in, private sector, education level, doctorate, marital status, occupation, race, gender, number of hours per week that this person worked, and the country of origin. And finally, there is an output field that is the target, that is the Y label. Okay, so these first 9 fields are the input X. Okay, they're not exactly input X because you have to do some feature map or pre-processing or transformations before you can turn these 9 fields into a vector of many dimensions. And the last column is the output Y. Now this is the training data and the dev set. The test data looks like this. It's exactly the same except that the last field is missing because that's the field that you need to predict using your model, right? Trained on the training set. Now, this is what we call a semi-blind test set. Why this semi-blind? Because everything is known except the output. So the input X are completely known, just the output Y is not known. So this is not exactly blind, because if it's totally blind, then even the input is not known. In that case, I need you to upload your model, and then I run it on some completely blind data, which you never see at all. So semi-blind is kind of convenient because I provide you the input, X, and ask you to label Y, and then you just need to upload upload the whole X and Y, so that in your submission you just add, greater than 50K or less than 50K field here, so that the submitted test data would look like very similar to training data, right? So it has all the 9+1 fields, okay? So the last field is basically, did this person earn more than $50,000 a year? So per capita income, annual per capita income, okay? So let's take a look at these files. So this is the training data. It looks like this, right? A lot of people. Well, right, and some people are earning less than 50K, some people are earning more than 50K. The total number of this set is 5,000 training examples, and then there's also a dev set or held out set, which can prevent your training algorithm from overfitting. This is 1,000 examples. Now the test set is 1,000 as well. But actually, I did not give you this test because this test set is actually labeled, right? So this is the ground truth, which I will now give you. The file I give you is the semi-blind file, which is missing the last field, the output, right? So this is the file you'll be having in the actual data set, and you need to add this last field and submit it to me, right? Submit it onto Canvas. And part of your grade is dependent on the accuracy of your prediction and the relative rank of your model, of your prediction in this whole class. Okay, so I highly recommend you to use the terminal, which is available on Linux and Mac. If you don't have a Linux or Mac, you can SSH to the school machine. You can just SSH access what's my name on? access.engr.oregonstate.edu, right? And then you can do Python, and NumPy is there already installed. You can use either Python 2 or Python 3. On this machine, Python 2 has NumPy installed. Python 3 does not have NumPy installed. So probably if you have to work on school machines, it's better to use Python 2. But if you have your own Python 3 setup, like what I did, okay, so I have Python 2, and I have my NumPy installed. I also have Python 3, and I believe I also have NumPy installed here. So if you have your own installation, yeah, you can use either Python 2 or Python 3. Forward-looking, it's probably better to switch to Python 3 right now because a lot of packages like NumPy and SciPy and scikit-learn started to stop or drop support for Python 2. In the long run, maybe after 5 years, more and more people will be using Python 3. But that's a minor issue. It's totally fine to use Python 2, at least for this course. Okay, so if we look at this data set, so let's look at the training set, right? You see that there are 9 input fields and 1 output field, okay? And how do you kind of convert this set to a vector format, right? That's the feature map. That's the job of feature engineering or pre-processing the data, right? And so you have to convert it first. What is like bachelor's? What is divorced? What is private? Well, you need to convert all of these to binary features as well. Okay, so for example, you would say this is the second field, which is called the sector, the employment sector, private sector or government or self-employed or state government or federal government or local government, right? So you would have different features for this field as well. So if let's say there are 10 sectors, I just made it up, 10 different sectors that a person can work on, and then you have 10 features for this field, right? And the next field is basically the education level. And let's say the education level runs from high school to college to master's to doctorate to whatever. So let's say there are 10 different possibilities for educational level, and then this educational level field becomes 10 features, right? So education equals doctorate is a feature, which is a binary feature, and education equals high school is another feature, right? So now some interesting facts in homework 1 data. So first thing you notice is that most people are negative. Most people earn less than 50K a year. This was because the data was pretty old, like more than 20 years old. And at that time, 1994, the average per capita income in the United States is about $27,000. Okay, nowadays, I think it's more than 50K, slightly more than 50K, but still, if you look at it, today's census data, more than half people will be earning less than 50K. Okay, because there are a lot of people earning much higher than that, so the average will be much bigger than 50K, but the median will be still less than 50K. Okay, the majority of Americans, I think, earn less than 50K a year, even today. Okay, so it's not surprising at all that the data is very skewed. Only a quarter is positive. Okay, and if you look at all these fields, the second field, that is, or the third field, that is education, is by far the single most important indicator, right? So if education is doctorate, it's almost, almost a certain, but actually not exactly 100%, but like 80% of the people who have a doctorate degree are earning more than 50K. Professional school is also very positive. Master's is also very positive, but much less than professional school. And high school dropout, like 9th, so there's education equals 9th, which means high school dropout, is extremely negative. So, looking at this data, you can get some advice for your life. That is, if you have a chance to get a master's, get a degree in, PhD or a professional school, then you're almost guaranteed to earn more than 50K, okay? And married is very good, even though less than half. But never married, that is single, is actually extremely negative. It's only 5%. Why? Why is that the case? Well, it's because most young people earn less than 50K. Okay, the people who earn more than 50K, which is only a quarter in that data set, are mostly older people. Okay, mostly people like 50 years old, 45 years old. Those people are mostly married. So single is a very negative feature. So this field, kind of indicates that if you're single, get married. If you're married, don't get divorced. Because if you look at the feature for divorce, it's actually also negative, not as bad as never married. And if you look at never married versus education equals ninth, never married is even worse than education equals ninth. Okay, that is something, right? Never married is even worse than high school dropouts. That is very interesting. In terms of the employment sector, self-employed incorporated is by far the best. Okay, it's 59% positive. Because you have a company and that company is actually not a small company, it's actually incorporated. Right? So if you have a company but not incorporated, it's only 30%, right? Hours per week equals 1 is actually 100%. Why? Because that person is just, sitting on the investment, right? Country equals Iran is actually 70% positive. Iranian Americans mostly working highly paid jobs, right? And in terms of occupations, executives, managerial, like CEOs, right? And professional specialty, like doctors, maybe, are best paid occupations. They're close to 50%, still less than 50% positive. And you can find some interesting combinations, such as if a person has a doctorate, edu equals doctorate, and he or she works in a self-employed incorporated sector, then it's actually 100% positive, right? So here, I will delve more about how you look at the data on terminal, but the take-home message is you need to be basic. You need to have some basic familiarity with the terminal and how to use Linux commands to look at the data. Because if you want to be a data scientist, right, you just have to be familiar with the terminal and how to process data on the terminal, because there's just too much data and it's too slow to write programs to do them, to do the processing. You need to use those cat, sort, cut, unique, grep, awk, all these kind of little tools on Unix. Okay, so let's look at, for example, this example. That is, how do you see what kind of values are there for a certain field? For example, okay, let's say how many possible sectors are there for the second field? Okay, so how do I do it? I say cat, and let me do a demo. So head is basically taking the first 10 lines, first 10 examples, and tail is the last 10 lines, okay? And you can head 1, first line, okay? So now if I want to cut a field, if I just want to look at the first field, so I say field 1, no, that doesn't work because by default the delimiter is a tab. In this case, it's not a tab, it's a comma, so you have to say that, right? So if you want to cut the first field with a delimiter of being comma, then you get the first field, that is the age, right? So if you want a second field, now you get the employment sector. If you want the second and third, so you say 2 to 3, right? Now if you just want the second field and you say all possible second fields, you got this, right? And then there are a lot of duplicates, right? So you sort them and then you unique them. Okay, these are the unique employment sectors: federal government, local government, private sector, self-employed, incorporated, self-employed, not incorporated, state government, and finally without pay. There's even without pay, right? And if you want to say how many examples are there for each type, for each unique type, well, just add -c, which means count. Okay, so 150 people worked for federal government. The vast majority worked for private industry, private sectors. That's the case in United States, right? And the other employment sectors are all very small compared to private, right? So even if you add up all the others, it's still much less than private. Okay, that's the case for the second field, that is the sector, employment sector. The third field, you can do the same, that's education. And wow, these are the educational levels present in this data set. Okay, there is 10th grade, that means high school dropout, 11th grade, 12th grade, these are all high school dropouts. If they graduate from high school, it's high school grad, right? And you can see that by far, this is the majority. This is not a majority, this is the vast, the number, the biggest type is high school grad, all right? So amount of 5,000 examples, you know, about 32% are high school grad, right? And then there's ninth, there's first grade. Okay, these are like elementary school dropouts, middle school dropouts, whatever. And then there's associate degree, academic, associate degree, vocational school, bachelor's degree. That means people who have graduated with a degree from college. So there are actually way more people who do not graduate but attended some years. Like, oh, I attended like 1 or 2 years or 3 years of college. So there's some college, and then there is doctorate, which is the smallest, which is very small category. High school grad, we just said. Masters, preschool. There's even preschool. I didn't even know that. And professional school. Okay, that's the third field. The fourth field, if you look at that, it's marital status, divorced, married, whatever, separated, widowed. Fifth field is the occupation. Okay, you can work in armed forces or craft repair or executives or farming, fishing, blah 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 blah. Other services, sales, transportation, moving, blah blah blah. The sixth field is race. Amerindian Eskimo, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Islanders, Black, Other, and White. The seventh field is gender, and this data set is actually disproportionately more males than females. This is the number of hours, okay? Number of hours, and if you further sort it, and sort by the second field. How do you sort by second field? You say NK2. N means numerical, key 2, second field. Okay, so then it goes from 1 to all the way to 99. Okay, people can work from 1 hour to 99 hours per week, right? So, but the vast majority of people work 40 hours, just exactly 40 hours a week. That is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Okay, that's the majority, I think. Right. Okay. Now, if you want to sort by the first field, that is basically how frequent or how popular are these working hours. 40 is definitely the most popular working hours. 50 people actually overwork, right? 45, 60, and then less and less, right? And the least common ones are 1 week, 1 hour per week, only one person, 19 hours per week, one person, right? Okay, so the vast majority of people work, these hours, right? Okay, that's the ninth. And the last input field is the country of origin. Okay, the country of origin, well, the vast majority is the United States. If you sort by the first field, okay, sort by the first field. Oh, by the way, this vertical bars means pipe, right? So the basic idea is you run a kind of sequence or pipeline of programs. This is the first program. Its output is fed into as the input to the second program, whose output is fed into as the input to the third program, and then on. You can sequence a lot of small programs and in order to accomplish a bigger task. That's the key philosophy of Unix design. That is, each program do very small things, right? But chaining them together, pipelining them together, you can accomplish big tasks. Okay, that's very nice modular design. Okay, so where are we? Sort NK1. Okay, the vast majority is United States origin. Okay, because we have 5,000 people, only less than 500 are from other countries. Like Mexico is the biggest non-US country, Canada second biggest, Philippines, Germany, Puerto Rico, El Salvador, Cuba, Jamaica, England, China, blah 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 blah. and Italy and Iran, blah 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 blah, right? And home may be a mistake, probably Hong Kong. Yeah, okay. So this is the last field. Okay, and what about the 10th field? Well, the 10th field is just the output being positive or negative. Okay, so if you do not sort these guys, you sort and unique dash C, you can see that the vast majority are negative and about a quarter is positive. Okay. Now, how do you look at a certain feature and say how positive is that feature? For example, doctorate, right? So you can use grep. Okay. So grep doctorate. You don't need to even say that. You should just say doc because that's enough. Okay, there are a lot of doctorates. And how many are there? WC-L, 60 people with doctorate, right? Alternatively, you can just say grep-C, which is count 60 people there, right? Now, among them, how many people have greater than 50K annual income? Dash C, 48. Wow, that's how we calculate 80% positive, right? And what about doctorate? What about, let's say, never married? Never married. Well, there are 77 never married people, single people earning more than 50K. But how many people are there never married in total? Yeah, a lot, right? So that's why it's only 5%. If you're never married, there's only 5% chance you earn more than 50K, okay? Now, what about some interesting combinations? For example, what about if you're a doctor and you work for self-employed incorporated? This self should be capitalized. Okay, so there are only 3 people with that kind of combination and they're all positive, 100% positive. What if you're a doctorate and you're never married? Okay, then you can see that it's much more. The first I need to know how many. Okay, 14 people, and okay, half, right? So even though never married as a whole is only 5% positive, never married and doctorate is 50% positive. That's a lot, right? That again shows the value of education. Okay. Now you can do all kinds of interesting combinations, and I'll just leave it to you to kind of figure them out, right? Okay. Yeah. So if you want to figure out the smallest age, you can do. Let's do that. Smallest age. Okay, small age is the first field, so just cut first field. Okay, and you sort NK1. You don't need to say NK1, but just And then you can header 1. That's the smallest age, youngest age in that data set. Biggest age in that oldest age in that data set is 90, right? Okay. That's how you kind of look at the data on the terminal. Okay, you can also look at the data on your favorite editor, but they do not do a job of doing the statistics or calculating how many people are positive, how many people are negative. Those you have to do it by grep, by WC, by cut and sort, and unique -C, right? So our TA has calculated the most positive features, not fields, but features. Remember, these are binary features in this data set. Actually, all the positive features, meaning like if this feature means more than 50% positive, right? As we said, doctorate, professional school, and masters are very positive. Masters is positive but not very positive. But remember that if you're just a random person, you have 25% of chance getting more than 50 a year, right? Sector equals self-employed, incorporated, 60%, 59%, and hours per week equals 99, 60%, hours per week equals 6801, 100%. Because this is just like one single data point, so it could be an outlier, it could be noise, or it could be just a person who is sitting on his or her investments, so he or she does not need to work, right? And 68, probably just one person. Those doesn't make much sense. Country of origin equals Iran is the most interesting. It actually has 70% positive. And if we look at those Iranian Americans, okay, how do I do that? Our favorite friend, grep Iran. Okay, so how many people are coming from Iran? Well, dash C, or just or only 10 people. But among these 10 people, seven of them, yeah, are positive. And you can look at their kind of occupations: professional specialty, executive managerial, professional specialty, right? Craft repair, right? He's one of the three, less than 50%, right? So the majority of Iranian Americans here in this data set work in professional specialty or managerial positions, right? And in terms of education, they are doctorate, bachelor's, doctorate, bachelor's. They're disproportionately highly educated compared to the rest of Americans. Compared to kind of an average American, Iranian Americans are much higher educated, and they work in highly paid jobs, right? So that's why in this data set at least, Iranian Americans are much higher paid, right? So that's what you need to do for this homework.